Hi brave parents! Today we're going to do something a little bit different than we normally do. We are talking about visits. Visits that foster children have with their birth family. And today I am going to get the kids' perspective on how they feel about having visits. But first, I'm going to tell you from my perspective what we went through. So we've had a lot of kids in our home, and some have had visits with birth family and some have not. Some of the contact with birth family has been our doing and some has been required. So Shaun and I are usually friends or become somewhat friends with the birth grandparents, sometimes aunts, uncles, cousins, things like that. But when it comes to birth moms and dads, that is usually always a requirement for the kids to have visits. And so with that, here has been our experience. With our first sibling group that we had, which was Jade, Lily, and Gavin, the only kids out of that group, and Christian came later, but the only two kids out of that group that had visits at all were Jade and Lily. And they only had just a couple visits after they were placed with us, and then their birth mom ended up going to a different state and no longer had contact with them. But with those visits, we did get some behaviors from Jade. Lily was so little, she was only 3 months old, and so she didn't really understand. But Jade, she would have behaviors where she would get just a little bit extra defiant, a little bit extra disrespectful. She would do crazy things sometimes on her visits where she would cause a lot of trouble there, wouldn't help out, wouldn't do what she was asked. And so I know one time they even ended the visit early because they were just having so much trouble with her on the visit. Our second sibling group that we had, they had visitation requirements with their birth mom, and so they would see her on a fairly regular basis. I think for a while, and keep in mind we had them for 3 years, so it was kind of off and on depending on the time frame that they had visits. So sometimes it was every weekend. There for a while they were doing it weekends and during the week. It would increase and then sometimes it would have to decrease depending on how intense their behaviors got. We got to a point where the kids had been with us for such a long time that they weren't quite sure that they really wanted to go on visits, and so instead of coming out and saying that, I don't think they wanted to hurt anyone's feelings, they had a lot of behaviors on visits. We got kids who would pee their pants during visits. We had kids that would go into, one of the kids went into a rage and ended up throwing things and locking himself in a room and flipping a couch and doing things like that, because emotionally it was just way too much for them to handle. And so we also at home would get some of those excessive behaviors. The kids would talk about not wanting to live anymore, or they would have a lot of emotions where they would cry a lot, or we would see a lot of really big emotions and really out of the ordinary big behaviors where we would get emotional blow-ups. We would see some physical aggression, things that were just not, that you wouldn't normally see, but you would see them surrounding visits. So maybe right before or right after, or both, right before and right after a visit. A lot of times you would see things on visits, not always, but I think There were a lot of times where they wanted to be on their best behavior on a visit, but when it was just a little too much for them to handle, then we would start seeing things on the actual visits. Most of the time it's before the visit and after the visit, so the foster parent is the one that ends up, having to work through those with the child. So what we found is a lot of structure, having boundaries, and just also being, empathetic to what the kids are going through, being understanding, extra loving, and just having some tools in your back pocket that you can pull out during those times. Sometimes you'll get parents that don't show up, and that can cause a lot of emotional and behavioral issues with the kids. And so doing something special with them during those times can be helpful, or having a special day or special time with you, the foster parents, when that happens, or even if they do go on the visit, having special time before or after can be helpful to help take their mind off of what's coming up or what just happened. Transition times work well for after visits. We used to use those where the kids come home, and then every time after a visit we would do the same thing. They might go to their bedroom for 10 minutes, and then we would have them come out and maybe color, and then maybe we would sit down and watch a TV program and start dinner, but we would follow a similar routine. That way they knew what to expect, and also it does help them to transition from one parent to the next. But I am excited to hear what the kids have to say. I'm sure that they have a very different perspective, and I am interested to hear how they feel about visits. So let's go find them and see what they think. Today we are talking about visits, and I wanted to get kids' perspective on having visits with your birth parents. You had visits with your birth mom, and you had a lot of years where you had visits on and off, and I'm curious to hear how you feel or what you think about visits.
I like visits. Having visits, just the thing that's hard about it is when they don't show up or it gets canceled, or when you do visits for 2 years and then you stop because you can't do them anymore. That's hard.
That is hard. What was your favorite thing about having visits?
Being able to see my birth mom.
What was your least favorite thing about visits?
Probably the wait. You have to wait so long.
You mean before you have them, or?
They would kind of have. They used to have turns, I think, one-on-one with the parent or something like that. But I remember we had to wait for a very long time to do something, to be able to be on the visit.
What was one of your most memorable visits?
I remember when I was crying one day because, was it the first visit or the second? Anyway, there was one of those, and she didn't show up. We waited there for a couple minutes, and she didn't show up, and then we just started to cry a lot.
Ah, yes. So that was a memorable bad visit.
Yes.
Do you have a memorable good one?
Yeah. I remember when we were all playing board games and everything, and she got us gifts.
That was nice. Okay, well, thanks for sharing. Emma, you're next. Today we're talking about visits, visits with your birth family.
Okay.
And you had visits with your birth mom, and I am curious to know what you think about visits, having visitation.
Well, I feel like it's good to see if there are a crypto, but I also feel like it's really not, it's not really a good thing to see if they could actually be a parent, because it's just a couple of hours or an hour, so you can't really tell somebody's a good parent by just 1 hour.
That's a very good point.
So I feel like it would be like the where we would spend the night or something. Like a lady would watch us the whole entire time. I feel like that would be more of a thing to see if they could watch.
Yep, you're right. What is one thing that you like about visits?
You get to see your parents.
Okay. What is one thing that you don't like about visits?
I would. Oh, when the food, when your parents are trying to bring like some food that they already cooked,
Yeah.
and because it was in the car or something, it gets ruined.
Yes.
So then you guys just have to order pizza every time.
That's because she had to provide dinner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is one of your most memorable visits?
It would have to be the last time I saw my birth dad.
Last time you saw your birth dad?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
I know, but it's one that's always
Stuck out?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so do you guys ever have, you're the oldest of your group. Did anybody ever have behaviors before, after, or during visits?
I feel like after we'd be a little bit wild.
Yeah.
And like during visits, like when we were hungry, we knew like if we were acting wild or something, then she would just give us food. So
So it was kind of a tactic?
yeah.
Oh my goodness. The things that come out afterwards. All right, Jade, today we're talking about visits with birth parents.
Okay.
You had them with your birth mom.
Yes.
Yes. And you had a little bit of a different experience than the other kids did. Because you only had visits for like a month when you were with us.
Yeah.
But you did have more when you were with your foster mom before us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, what do you think about having visits with birth parents?
I really liked it.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I got to see my birth mom.
What was one thing you liked about it?
I got to have two people love me at the not same time, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What's one thing that you didn't like about it?
Having to leave you and then also having to leave my birth mom.
Yeah, that's hard, isn't it? What is one of your most memorable visits?
It's not a real good one.
Oh no.
It was my last visit.
Oh, well, tell us about it.
Because my birth mom, just couldn't, it was sad, to see me leave and everything, and just couldn't do it, anymore. And so she made me leave early and made it sound like it was my fault.
Oh.
Yeah.
Were you having some behaviors though?
Yes.
You were. What were you doing?
Not picking up the bag, stuff like that.
And you remember that?
Yeah.
But you were little. Do you remember how old you were?
4 or
You were
5.
4, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were really little.
Yeah.
But that still sticks out in your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Thanks for sharing. John, today we're talking about visits with birth parents. You had visits with your birth mom, and I want to know what you think about having visits.
Well, they're very fun, but they're also a little sad because you keep on going back and forth, and when you're in adoption, you don't really know which family you want, and when you leave when you go to the other family, you get pretty sad because you want to go back to the other one.
Yeah, that's hard.
Very
You
hard.
have two families that love you,
But you can only go with one.
but you can only be with one. Well, do you think visits are a good thing? Having visits with your birth parents?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. How about, what is one of your most memorable visits?
Well, my birthday visit and Christmas.
You got lots of gifts, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what's one thing you really like about visits?
That you get to see your mom or dad or a family member that you know, which is very nice and fun because you can hang out with them.
What's one thing you don't like about visits?
You have to stay, you basically, mostly have to stay in like a big like sort of house-ish, not really house, like
Like a visitation center?
Yeah, it's like a floor, but you have to stay in there, which there's like a couple rooms in there.
Yeah. Sometimes they're small.
Yeah, or big.
Let me ask. You're the second oldest out of your sibling group.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys ever have any behaviors before, after, or during visits?
Yes, we did.
Yes, you did.
Cause you sort of change between like both family members, cause personality. Let's just say that. Cause you have two different personalities. Like, say if one was very fancy and you had to use a lot of manners, the other one just didn't really care about the manners. It's hard for you to change it back and forth.
Because the parents have different expectations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to follow those expectations.
Did you ever have really big feelings?
Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes that comes out in behaviors, doesn't it? Or in emotions. Okay, John, that's it. Thanks for sharing.
Bye. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, click here. And if you haven't watched our video foster care placements, click here. See you in the next video, guys. Bye.